All right, gentlemen, let's jump right in. You know this deep dive is for you guys, the married red pill crew out there. And today we're going to be tackling Alchemy of Adversity, a red-pilled guide to personal transformation by Conrad Riker. And I know a lot of you guys are looking for ways to kind of level up, not just as individuals, but as husbands. Navigating a world that doesn't always seem to get where you're coming from.
You know, one of the things that really stood out to me about this book was how Riker really directly addresses that feeling that a lot of men, especially in your community,
Oh, yeah.
have of kind of fighting an uphill battle, especially in the context of marriage. You know, he really doesn't shy away from calling out those societal pressures and expectations that can leave a guy feeling like he's constantly walking on eggshells.
Yeah, he really puts it out there.
Yeah.
Does he? But one thing I appreciate is that he's not just some armchair philosopher.
Yeah.
You know, Riker actually pulls from his own life. He talks about facing betrayal, going through those dark times,
Yeah.
and using those experiences
Yeah.
to come out stronger on the other side.
That personal touch, I think, is key. You know, he's establishing himself as someone who's been in the trenches, as someone who understands the specific challenges that so many men in the married red pill community are grappling with.
Okay, so the book's central metaphor is this whole alchemy of adversity thing. Now, it sounds kind of fancy, but I think the idea is pretty straightforward. How do you take the curveballs life throws at you? The betrayals, the failures, the times you feel like you're getting the short end of the stick, and you turn them into fuel for growth.
It's like those alchemists of old, trying to turn lead into gold.
Right. Riker's saying, look, you can take the raw material of your struggles and use it to forge something stronger, something more valuable. And he even connects this directly to the red pill concept.
Right? It's about waking up to reality, seeing things for what they are, and then saying, okay, how do I use this knowledge to my advantage?
He argues that once you see through the illusions, you can start consciously using those challenges to build resilience and achieve your goals. And a big part of that, according to Riker, is tapping into those. You know, those classic masculine virtues. He talks about courage, integrity, self-control, qualities that have been celebrated across cultures for centuries. I mean, he even dives into how these virtues are woven into different spiritual traditions. Christianity, Stoicism, that whole warrior code ethos.
And he makes a compelling point, I think, about how these virtues aren't just some, you know, outdated macho ideal. He sees them as essential tools for navigating a world that often feels hostile to traditional masculinity, especially for married men.
Absolutely. And, you know, he doesn't shy away from addressing the real struggles that come with trying to live up to those virtues. In today's world, he talks about how societal expectations can actually stifle a man's emotional and spiritual growth.
He gives this example of a guy named Jake who's trapped in this, like, strong, silent type mold. And on the surface, you know, Jake is living up to that ideal of stoic masculinity. But underneath, he's dealing with a ton of grief and emotional pain.
Yeah, that really resonated with me. It's like society's telling him, don't be vulnerable, don't show your emotions. But that kind of repression can be toxic, can't it?
Exactly. Riker argues that true spiritual growth requires embracing those vulnerabilities, confronting those, you know, darker parts of ourselves. He even ties it to Carl Jung's idea of the shadow self, those aspects of our personality that we tend to hide or deny.
Oh, okay, so we're getting pretty deep here. So how does Riker suggest men start unpacking all of that?
Well, he places a lot of emphasis on the role of father figures. And he's not about blaming fathers, but he acknowledges the huge impact they have on shaping a man's sense of self and his spiritual development. He urges readers to reflect on those relationships, to understand how their fathers, whether a positive or negative influence, shape their views on masculinity and spirituality.
That makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of guys in the red pill community have complex relationships with their fathers.
And Riker doesn't shy away from that complexity. He encourages men to unpack those relationships, to see how they might be playing out in their current lives, especially within their marriages.
So let's talk about one of the most intense topics that Riker covers, betrayal. He actually shares a deeply personal story about being betrayed by someone he considered a close friend. And he even brings in some scientific backing. He references a 2016 study that showed how betrayal actually triggers the same pain responses in the brain as physical injury.
Yeah, that really stuck with me because it explains why betrayal cuts so deep, why it can feel like a punch to the gut. And it's not just anecdotal, there's actual neuroscience behind it.
Right, and it makes you realize how much power we give to other people, especially those we trust.
But Riker doesn't leave you wallowing in that pain. He emphasizes that betrayal, as devastating as it can also be a catalyst for growth. He talks about how facing betrayal can force you to reevaluate your boundaries, to take stock of your values, and to become more discerning about who you let into your inner circle.
So it's about turning that pain into a lesson, into a way to protect yourself in the future.
Exactly. And he offers some really practical advice on how to deal with betrayal, including a concept that's really key, I think, for the Red Pill audience: rational thinking. He urges readers to resist the urge, to react emotionally, and instead use logic and reason to guide their actions. He even dedicates a whole chapter to rational thinking, walking readers through practical techniques for identifying and overcoming, those knee-jerk emotional responses.
That really resonates with that whole
Yeah.
Red Pill philosophy. It's about seeing through the emotional manipulation that's so prevalent in our culture, right?
Absolutely. And it's not just about avoiding manipulation from others. It's about mastering your own emotions so that you can make clear-headed decisions, especially in high-stakes situations, like dealing with betrayal in a marriage.
He even gets into, those logical fallacies, those sneaky tricks of argumentation. That can really trip you up.
If you're not paying attention. He's giving readers like a mental toolkit for dissecting arguments, for seeing through the BS, and for constructing, solid, logical arguments of their own. And that's incredibly empowering, especially in a world where emotions often seem to trump reason.
Okay, so this next part is where Riker dives into
some pretty controversial territory, and it's something that I know a lot of guys in the married Red Pill community are concerned about: the influence of what he calls cultural Marxism.
Yeah, and he's pretty upfront about his view that this ideology is pervasive in our society and that it's actively working against traditional values, especially those related to marriage and family.
He gets pretty specific, too. He talks about how cultural Marxism promotes a victimhood mentality, undermines personal responsibility, and pushes a worldview that's often at odds with the values that a lot of men in this community hold dear.
And he doesn't just throw the term without defining it. He breaks it down, explains how this ideology has roots in Marxist theory, but has morphed and adapted to become a really powerful force in shaping cultural norms and attitudes. That's one thing I appreciate about this book. He doesn't shy away from tackling these complex and often politically charged topics. But he does it in a way that's informative and thought-provoking, encouraging readers to think critically and to draw their own conclusions.
And he also connects this back to the idea of adversity alchemy, suggesting that recognizing these cultural forces, understanding their impact, can be the first step in transforming those challenges into opportunities for growth.
So it's not just about complaining or feeling like a victim. It's about equipping yourself with knowledge and then using that knowledge to take back control of your life, which, when you think about it, is very much in line with the whole Red Pill philosophy.
Absolutely. It's about empowerment through understanding. And he gives some really concrete advice on how to resist these negative influences. He emphasizes the importance of self-awareness, critical thinking, and finding strength in shared values with like-minded individuals. He even talks about actively seeking out alternative sources of information, ones that challenge the mainstream narrative.
That whole building a tribe concept is huge for him, isn't it? He seems to believe that surrounding yourself with a supportive community is essential for navigating these cultural challenges.
He dedicates a whole section to that idea, exploring the power of finding your people, those who understand your struggles, who share your values, and who can offer support and encouragement when things get tough.
He uses some interesting examples, too, like those ancient warrior cultures, the Spartans, the samurai.
He's drawing parallels between those historical examples and the challenges that men face today, suggesting that having a strong, tight-knit tribe is just as important now as it was back then.
Okay. So after that deep dive into cultural forces, Riker brings it back to the personal level with a chapter on symbolism and its impact on our subconscious minds.
Yeah, this part was fascinating. He argues that symbols hold a deep, often unconscious power over us, and that understanding that power can unlock a whole new level of self-awareness and growth.
He throws out a bunch of examples.
Yeah.
But the two that really stuck with me were the phoenix and the anchor.
Those are powerful images, aren't they? The phoenix, rising from the ashes, represents that ability to overcome adversity, to transform yourself, even after you've been broken.
And the anchor, steadfast and unmoving in the face of storms, is a symbol of resilience, stability, and that inner strength that helps you weather life's challenges.
He's giving readers like a visual vocabulary for navigating their own journeys, a way to connect with, those ancient archetypes that have resonated with humans For centuries.
Or now for the part where some people might roll their eyes. Riker gets into visualization and its power to shape reality. And I know that can sound a little woo-woo for some folks.
But he actually brings in some science to back it up. He references that Harvard study that showed how simply visualizing an activity activates the same brain regions as actually performing that activity.
So it's not just some airy-fairy new age concept. There's actual neuroscience behind it.
Exactly. He's saying that our brains have a hard time distinguishing between real and imagined experiences. So when we vividly visualize something, we're essentially priming our minds and bodies to make it happen.
He uses that great example of Jim Carrey writing himself a $10 million check back when he was struggling. As a comedian, he visualized his success, and years later, it became a reality.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that what we focus on, what we believe, can have a real impact on the course of our lives.
And then he connects us back to the idea of building a tribe, suggesting that surrounding yourself with a supportive community can actually amplify the power of visualization.
Makes sense. When you have people around you who believe in your vision, who encourage you, who hold you accountable, it becomes easier to stay focused and to manifest those goals.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, but with a group effort boost. Okay, now for a concept that's often overlooked in our noisy, hyper-connected world, the power of silence. Riker argues that silence is more than just the absence of sound. It's a space for introspection, for connecting with your inner self, and for finding clarity amidst the chaos.
He even talks about Vipassana meditation, those intense 10-day silent retreats where you're literally not allowed to speak. You know, he's making the point that carving out space for silence, even if it's just for a few minutes a day, it can be incredibly transformative.
Yeah, it's like hitting the pause button on all that external noise and allowing yourself to just be present with your thoughts and feelings. He even cites studies that show how silence can reduce stress, boost creativity, and improve decision-making.
Yeah, he's challenging, you know, that modern obsession with constant stimulation, that fear of being alone with our own thoughts. He's advocating for a return to that inner stillness, that place where we can connect with our deepest selves and access a level of wisdom that's often drowned out by the noise of everyday life.
He also talks about how mastering silence can actually make you a more effective communicator.
Yes, he argues that learning to be comfortable with silence, both internally and in conversations, allows you to speak with more intention, to listen more deeply, and to choose your words carefully.
That's a really interesting point. It's like silence gives you that space to process information, to formulate your thoughts, and to respond rather than just react.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a sense of presence and intentionality in your communication, which is incredibly valuable in any relationship, but especially in a marriage.
Okay. And for our listeners who are ready to embrace their inner warrior, Riker has a whole chapter dedicated to the warrior's path. And he's not talking about physical combat here. He's using warrior as a metaphor for facing life's challenges head-on with courage, discipline, and a relentless pursuit of self-improvement.
He shares a personal story about how he chose the warrior's path during a particularly difficult time in his life, a time when he was facing personal and professional setbacks. And it's a powerful example of how choosing to embrace that warrior mentality, that commitment to fighting for what you believe in, can help you overcome adversity and achieve your goals.
He talks about how the warrior's path isn't about aggression or dominating others. It's about conquering your own inner demons, facing your fears, and becoming the best version of yourself. He even talks about developing a battle plan for life, a set of principles and strategies that guide your actions and help you stay focused on your goals.
It's about having that strategic mindset, that commitment to preparation and training, which, when you think about it, aligns perfectly with the red pill philosophy, self-improvement, and taking control of your life.
Absolutely. He's urging readers to step into their power, to take responsibility for their own lives, and to become the heroes of their own stories.
And a big part of that warrior's journey, at least as Riker sees it, is building a strong and supportive tribe. He really emphasizes that we don't have to face these battles alone. In fact, he argues that having a tribe of like-minded individuals is crucial for staying strong, motivated, and resilient in the face of adversity.
Yeah, he actually uses the word essential, doesn't he? He seems to believe that.
Yeah.
Having a tribe is almost as important as having a solid battle plan.
Exactly. He sees it as a fundamental human need, this desire to belong, to connect with others who share our values and understand our struggles. He even talks about how, you know, our ancestors relied on tribes for survival, for protection, for a sense of shared purpose. And he argues that even in our modern world, that need for tribal connection is still deeply ingrained in us.
And I think that really resonates with a lot of guys. In the married red pill community, there's often this feeling of isolation, like you're going against the grain of what society expects, especially when it comes to this.
Right. And Riker addresses that head on. He talks about how building a tribe can actually help you resist those negative cultural influences, those messages that undermine traditional masculinity. And family values. It's about creating a counterculture, a community of men who are committed to supporting each other. And upholding those values.
And he actually uses those ancient warrior cultures again.
That's exactly.
Like the Spartans, the samurai, those guys are all about loyalty, discipline, and fighting for a common cause.
He draws a direct parallel, suggesting that men today need that same kind of brotherhood, that sense of shared purpose to navigate the challenges of modern life. And he's not just talking about, hanging out with your buddies and watching football. He's talking about intentionally creating a community based on shared values, mutual support, and a commitment to personal growth.
And he gives some practical advice on how to actually build that tribe, doesn't he?
He does. He talks about seeking out like-minded individuals, attending events or joining groups that align with your values, and even creating your own tribe if you can't find one that fits. He also emphasizes the importance of shared rituals and traditions as a way to strengthen those tribal bonds.
It's an interesting point. It's like those shared experiences, those traditions create a sense of connection and belonging. That goes beyond just intellectual agreement.
Exactly. He's tapping into that deep human need for ritual, for those shared experiences that bind us together and create a sense of community. And he even gets into the psychology of group identity, talking about how being part of a tribe can boost our self-esteem, give us a sense of purpose, and even make us more resilient in the face of challenges.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about the alchemy of adversity, those classic masculine virtues, the power of rational thinking, the challenges of navigating a culture that often seems hostile to traditional values, the importance of building a tribe, and so much more. So what does all of this mean for our listeners, for the guys in the married red pill community who are looking to apply
these concepts to their own life?
I think Riker's book offers a really powerful framework for taking control of your life, for transforming those challenges into opportunities for growth, and for creating a life that's aligned with your values. And he's not sugarcoating things. He's acknowledging the very real struggles that men face today.
Especially within the context of marriage.
He's really speaking directly to that sense of disillusionment, that feeling of being marginalized or misunderstood that a lot of guys in this community feel.
But he's not just offering a diagnosis. He's providing solutions, actionable steps that men can take to turn things around. He's empowering them to become the best versions of themselves, to build strong and fulfilling marriages, and to become leaders in their families and communities.
So if there was one thing that our listeners took away from this deep dive, what would you say it is?
I'd say it's this. You have the power to transform your life. You're not a victim of your circumstances. You can choose to embrace the alchemy of adversity, to use those challenges as fuel for growth, and to create a life that's aligned with your deepest value.
And you don't have to do it alone. Build your tribe, connect with like-minded individuals, and support each other on this journey.
Because, as Riker so powerfully reminds us, the journey is always better when it's shared.
All right, gentlemen, that's our deep dive into Conrad Riker's Alchemy of Adversity. We hope this has given you some food for thought, some practical tools, and maybe even a little bit of inspiration to start applying these concepts to your own lives.
And if you're looking to continue the conversation, head over to the subreddit. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your insights, and your own experiences.
With Adversity Alchemy.
Until next time, keep those minds sharp, those hearts strong, and those tribes growing.